Peter, we're about ready. Okay. What do you think? Don't touch the machine. It's very delicate.
Okay. Welcome and good evening. We'll wait just a few seconds for the last folks to take their seats, and then we will start. Good evening. I'm Peter Brink, Senior Vice President, Programs of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. I've been asked to give a 2-minute introduction for one of the true leaders of historic preservation in America, Arthur Ziegler. As you can imagine, this is no mean feat. In the 1960s, in the early 1960s, Arthur became outraged at the pending urban renewal demolition of a historic neighborhood. He then co-founded Pittsburgh History and Landmark Foundation, and with a strong board and staff, has built it into one of the most effective preservation organizations in the United States and in the world. Pittsburgh is a historic city today, largely because of these decades of effective work. Arthur has also mentored hundreds of developing preservationists, including myself in 1973. The trip to follow Arthur around in Pittsburgh and learn from him was essential. Arthur has received the highest award of the National Trust, the Louise DuPont Crown and Shield Award for Lifetime Achievement. He has authored numerous books and articles. I look forward with you tonight to learning again from one of preservationists' most innovative and successful leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Pittsburgh, and welcome Pittsburghers to the Biome. I want first tonight to introduce a couple of people who have been very, very important for this conference. And even before that, I have a thank you to make, and that's to the Galliot Family Foundation, to Lou and Henry for supporting this meeting tonight. Otherwise, I could have stayed home. The lead sponsor for this conference, you saw the names rolling around if you came on time, of all of the people, all of the corporations and organizations that have helped sponsor this conference. But the lead has been one of our own, a bank, a downtown bank that, if you read the paper, on October 10th, became, through a $6 billion deal, the 11th largest bank in the United States. And that followed its acquisition of the Riggs Bank in Washington, and that led to PNC making a donation of historic artifacts that were housed with the Riggs Bank of a value of over $5 million. And I'd like to ask the president of PNC Bank to give you a word of welcome, Cy Holzer.
Thank you very much, Arthur, and it's truly a pleasure for me to be here this evening. And as you and the National Trust for Historic Preservation kick off the 2006 conference. This is not unusual. When I walked in, I must tell you, he said to me, "How long are you going to be?" I said, "Well, probably 10, 15 minutes. No, you're 3 minutes. So as I recraft my whole program here, I want 30 seconds for that last thing. Actually, I feel very badly for all of you. It's the first time it's rained here in months, and the Pirates are out of town tonight, so I'm sorry you can't go there this evening. But really, let me tell you how honored I am, and truly because of 3 basic reasons. It's my love for Pittsburgh, long time, lifetime resident, born here, raised here. My great respect for Arthur Ziegler, that's unparalleled in the community, and the legacy of the Pittsburgh History and Landmarks, none like it. And so let me say to you on behalf of the city, which is nice for me to be able to do, I'm absolutely delighted you've chosen Pittsburgh this year, and frankly, I can't think of a better city in the entire world, and I know that's big but it is true, to clearly demonstrate the theme of making preservation work. In fact, this theater that you're sitting in this evening, just symbolic again, was built in 1903 as the Gaiety Theater. It ran for many years as one of the foremost stage and vaudeville houses, with appearances from such stars as Ethel Barrymore, Gertrude Lawrence, Helen Hayes. What is really amazing is when this theater opened Halloween night, 1904, and I'm sure Arthur would have told you that, but I beat him to the punch. And again, he'll dock me for that. You'll soon discover Pittsburgh really is a truly amazing community that believes in saving the best of our past. Preserving our neighborhoods, and Pittsburgh is truly a community of neighborhoods. That's what we are, that's what we want to be. And it's extremely important to each of us who proudly call Pittsburgh home that we have these neighborhoods. In fact, I'll bet that most of you don't realize that while you were growing up in other parts of the country and the world, you were being influenced by Pittsburgh. And one of the world's best and most famous, in my mind, one of my great friends who I dearly miss. How many here know the lyrics of one of Pittsburgh's most beloved personalities? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. That song was written by Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers produced his extraordinary children's programs less than 10 minutes from here, based Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and the Mr. Rogers Make-Believe on, he based much of this on many of the historic landmarks in our region, many of the neighborhoods, and many of his close friends and relatives. And you'll know firsthand as you go around Pittsburgh, you'll feel that welcome to the neighborhood. I am a member of the History and Landmarks Foundation. I'm absolutely delighted that my company is the lead local sponsor of this conference. And it's with a great deal to do with what Arthur has done and the track record of this wonderful organization. It has stood for what's good and what's right in our entire community. So I'll shift through these pages to show Arthur that I'm moving ahead. These are all things I was going to say nice about him and about the community. You'll have to guess now what they were. But I do want to personalize a bit because Arthur has been a mentor, a friend and an advisor to PNC Bank for all these many years, and one in which has been tremendously productive. As you walk, I hope you'll go up Fifth Avenue and you'll see a big hole. That big hole is going to be another building, and again, it's part of the revitalization. It works both ways, preserving and adding, and we're doing that, I think, quite effectively, and certainly in the last couple of years, more effectively than before. Pittsburgh Landmarks has done so much in the community. It has been absolutely one of the great things, and I'm sure Arthur will talk much more about it. But in closing, this prestigious and very important conference has not been held in Pittsburgh since 1960. I again want to extend my special thanks to Arthur Ziegler and the PHLF for being instrumental in bringing you here to our wonderful city, enjoying what we enjoy. And thanks to their outstanding leadership, this is the second conference in its history that is here. Once again, let me welcome each of you to our city, and I think you'll find that our people are as billed, friendly, and extremely proud of our city. So with that, Arthur, I tell you that I did my best, and welcome you back to the podium.
Just in time.
Yes, sir.
You're in the Gaiety Theater, as Cy told you, and you are in the heart of Pittsburgh's cultural district, a creation that was born first from a vision of H.J. Heinz about 30 years ago. And he said, let's move the cultural district from Oakland, not to all new buildings in the Lower Hill District, but to the old theaters downtown. And because of that, the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust was born, and these theaters were all refurbished, restored, and are in great reuse. So much reuse that when the National Trust said we want to use them when we come, they were full. And we had to turn to the president of the trust, Kevin McMahon, who really did move heaven and earth. By that I mean the symphony and the opera and the ballet. And here we are. Kevin.
Thank you, Arthur, very much, and maybe not heaven and earth, but a little bit of heaven. In fact, spelling bee is over at Heinz Hall tonight. Inside joke. That's our Symphony Hall. I also want to join Cy and the many others to welcome you to Pittsburgh and to thank you all so much for being here. Tonight, you're in the Byham Theater. Tomorrow evening, you're going to be in another beautifully restored theater, the Benedum Center for the Performing Arts, along with the other wonderful theaters here. Like Cy said, this cultural district is a function of both beautiful restoration of existing facilities married with beautiful new, wonderful architectural creations such as our Michael Graves O'Reilly Theater that's the home of our Pittsburgh Public Theater. And if you look around the cultural district, you will see many of the other new additions, the ballparks across the river, the new wonderful convention center. One of the things, I've only been here 5 years, one of the things that those who have been here for a long time, such as Arthur, tell me all of this wonderful new renaissance that Pittsburgh has experienced, in large measure, is a result of the wonderful historical preservation that the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust undertook, mainly through my predecessor, Carol Brown, and the wonderful folks that helped create the incentive and the financial support, some of whom are sitting in this room. PNC, another great example. The chairman of PNC, Cy's colleague, Jim Rohr, has been the chairman of the Cultural Trust for more than half a decade. And every day, these individuals continually help to make this a great city. So with that, I hope you have a chance for a few moments to enjoy this great city and walk around. You're in for a real treat. And for those of you that are coming back, please come back again and again. Thank you very much.
And our last distinguished greeter has been arrested as a preservationist. Some years ago, when cultural facilities were all in Oakland in a very exotically designed building called Syria Mosque, it was scheduled for demolition. We thought we had it saved, but it wasn't saved, and a then city councilman went out to lie down in front of the bulldozer. He did. He was lifted up and carted off. He's been an ardent, passionate preservationist ever since, and he decided, however, City Council didn't give him quite enough power, so he's now state senator. Jim Furlan.
Thank you, Art. Thank you. I didn't expect that one, but it's nice to be recognized for going to jail for something that I think all of us care a lot about, and that is our communities and our history and sense of place. It's indeed an honor to be out here this evening and to extend a warm greeting, and I do that on behalf of two other important elected officials that are not here in the audience tonight, one of whom is our mayor, Mayor Luke Ravenstahl, as well as our county executive, Dan Honorado, who are important partners in rebuilding the city and the vision of our community. So I want to recognize them for their participation in helping to make preservation work. And I want to invite all of you later on from 7:30 to 9 p.m. this evening. We have a great party planned in the lobby of the City County Building, a historically significant building, which many of you may have passed through over the last couple of days. We have a great party planned, 7:30 to 9, City County Building. When you leave out here, you can follow the black and gold balloons past that big hole in the ground on 5th Avenue, which will be an important skyscraper. Some of you remember that movie, Batteries Not Included. You see that big skyscraper eventually next to that little house that the folks fought to keep and maintain. Well, we have a similar situation. We have a great new PNC tower going up, a significant economic development boom for the city, a wonderful green building that's going to be going up, and right across the street, some little tiny buildings that the Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation, to their credit, have taken on, and they're going to preserve and protect those buildings and also combine the principles of green building with preservation. So we are honored indeed to have all of you from so many different towns and communities all across the United States being here. And prior to the Syria Mosque battle, I'll just close with this. I came from originally a town, Rome, New York. I know I met some people here from Syracuse and a few communities. I don't know if there's any Romans here. But when I was growing up, Rome, New York had the most beautiful downtown Main Street, Dominic Street. It was a historically significant corridor. It was the lifeblood of that community. Well, horrendously, similar to East Liberty mauling experience that we had here in the city of Pittsburgh in the late 60s, that community decided to tear up and totally dismantle what was the Main Street downtown corridor of that small town, a vibrant community. And they pretty much built a fake Fort Stanwix during the rage and craze of the bicentennial era. And as well, they created a mall, taking out every walking sidewalk and park, and they built an ugly parking garage. I use that to just say that there are a lot of things that emotionally motivate us to really stop and think. And I would hope and pray that part of the theme this evening and throughout this week that we go back and work hard in our respective communities. And we just say, before you bring that bulldozer, stop and let's just think a minute. Let's have the building blocks of sustainability be the principles of ecology, of equity, and economics. And when you apply those principles and get all the stakeholders involved, including the community residents and the people that breathe life into this buildings and into those infrastructure, we will indeed make preservation work. Please come to the party tonight. You're all welcome, and thank you very much for visiting our great city. Thank you.
We have lots and lots of people to thank. I want to begin this evening by thanking our highly flexible and dedicated Board of Trustees and our highly flexible and dedicated and very hardworking staff. If trustees, wherever you are, would stand, and our staff, I think, is all down front, if you'd stand, and everyone at least would recognize you during the course of the week. Preservation is widespread here. There are lots and lots and lots of people and groups involved. It is not Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation. I'm going to try to skim through a little history tonight, 5 minutes of 42 years of history, and the rest I want to devote to what's going on today and how we all interrelate, how we work together. But I must tell you that we've got an assortment of organizations that if we went to list them all, you'd have to sit through 10 or 12 slides of dense, small type. But the ones that work sort of county-wide and region-wide, Preservation Pittsburgh, the Steel Heritage Group, and YPA, and the other groups are those that sort of serve all of us and all of the neighborhood organizations at work. Everybody is pitching in. And pitch in we have to. Here's a map of just Pittsburgh. Now, most of us work in the county and even somewhat beyond. But Jim Furlow mentioned urban renewal, and we have to say that, Jim, one good thing came from urban renewal. It gave birth to a whole lot of preservation organizations because they all got mad. They all thought it was wrong-headed to go in and demolish the cultural, architectural, landscape resource of inner city areas, take out the houses, take out the people, and then replan all the streets. Wouldn't work. That's what we all said. It won't work. And so preservation was born. Now, some places it was born a lot earlier. San Antonio, I think, is celebrating its 82nd year, and Preservation Maryland just had a party for its 75th year. But we're one of those that came out of urban renewal, because back in 1964, that is what was scheduled for demolition, and there was more to be scheduled, and this did not include all the acreage that went down for public housing. And so some of us got going. Manchester was the area that started us, and we had no organization. It just was a happenstance that few of us discovered it. At that time, there really wasn't even a citizens corporation. It got going. And they were promoting then new housing set back on suburban lots. So we all got together, we got ourselves educated, and we did something that turned out to be very productive. Together, residents, preservationists went to the Urban Redevelopment Authority, and we said, let's convert this nationwide urban demolition plan. I think it was called 221D3, I'm not sure if that was it now, to a preservation plan. And they did. And we and URA and city planning and county economic development have been working together all these years in many ways ever since. And it was the first conversion in the United States of that HUD plan, because we all then went to HUD together with URA in the city, and HUD got it converted. So good things happened in Manchester and in many other neighborhoods, and we hope that you'll go and take a good look at all of this today. This is Manchester a couple of months ago with the spring blossoms. Out of it came an abiding principle of our organization. Preservation is not an end in itself, it is a means to an end. Stanley Lowe taught us that down in Manchester. It is a way to improve the lives of human beings and to improve the lives of their offspring. It makes a city a better place to live. It is something that renews the spirit. Through the place, we renew the spirit. That is what it has been all about for us. In '69, we went over to South Side, started what has now become known as a Main Street program. We moved around, but again we learned never to go in and say, here's what you people ought to be doing. That isn't it. We brought in knowledge about their buildings, about how to save buildings, could help raise money, help organize, but we, the preservationists, are an instrument of the grassroots people. They know what they want. They just need information and help. And so that's another abiding principle. And in this very summary history, I'll say we got involved in individual buildings as well as neighborhoods. There are 3 18th century buildings in the city limit. One was saved by the DAR. This was the other one. And another one will come up. We did restore it. Got involved with a number of these individual structures. And then we put our own planning principles to the test. We acquired the P&L Railroad property a mile long right across from downtown Pittsburgh on the Monongahela River, envisioned a mixed-use center in these historic buildings, and according to our principles that we had learned, not by being so smart, but by going around the country and being observant. What worked? We read Jane Jacobs. We read William White. They made all the difference in opening our eyes. And so, without any city subsidy, without any county subsidy or state subsidy, and the only federal subsidy was $975,000 to build a sewer line, we developed Station Square. When we sold it 19 years later, we had $100 million. We and our partners invested in it. We paid full real estate taxes, and unlike every single 50s, 60s renewal project, it worked. And the results were beautiful. The buildings were all adaptable. And in a site that generated, on the day we arrived in 1975, $47,000 in real estate and parking taxes, generated the year we left $4 million. And we brought 134 businesses to the site, 3,000 workers, and 3 million visitors. Well, that's the 42 years of history. What I want to do now is skim the surface like a dragonfly of what's going on here today and what our role is in it. And we don't have departments at our organization except for a Department of Education that you'll hear about a little later. What we have is a supportive board and a staff that readjusts, reforms every day with our hopes, our visions, our crises, our necessities, the requests for help that come along. So I've grouped these things under arbitrary headings. You could take the examples and move them around, but let's give it a try. First of all, we are known for revolving funds. We started one in Manchester in '64. 65, we started one Mexican War Streets in 66, we started one for Carson Street, Main Street in 68. And we're still starting them, as I will show you at the end. We use that money to lend to other nonprofits, and particularly neighborhood community development corporations, to go and do the work that they want to do. And I'll just show you the last 3 loans that we've made this year. One was to East Liberty Development, Inc., ELDI, LD, and they are buying with that loan Boland's Candy. This building is already in good shape. They have designs on the rest of the block. Over in Wilkinsburg, we made a loan to a group that is faith-based, and they are recreating this building as housing for people with disabilities. A group of young people came along and said, gee, there's that old church unused in a strategic location in the East End, and the union group formed, and we've made a loan to them and also helped them raise a little money. They are the most remarkable and ingenious group of people, and it will be a story in itself. You'll hear it if you go on the tour of East Liberty. And some time ago, we got a request from up in the Hill District, just up behind the city, African-American neighborhood. This was the home of African-American culture. This was the jazz center of Pittsburgh for many years. It was abandoned, and it was now owned by a man in Arizona, and he wouldn't sell it. It went $250,000. So I think Howard Slaughter was running our loan fund then. There he is. And he said, I'll come over, Hill District CDC, we'll call this guy up, and we'll offer him $99,000. We'll lend it to you, and we'll tell him he has to decide while I'm on the phone. He decided. We loaned the money. They own the building. And now they are off and running to try to find a way to restore it. We do something that not a lot of preservation groups do. We also lend at market rates. We don't compete with Seyholzer and Nat City and Mellon and so forth. We go in where banks fear to tread. And so folks come along and they say, as this man said, there's a building 6 blocks from here in the Strip District. This was before the Strip was really catching on as a nighttime place. And he said, I'd like to convert this warehouse to office space. No one will lend me any money. I'm putting up some cash, but I need a construction loan. We thought it was a great idea. We thought the collateral was good, the building. We loaned him the entire construction loan. He got it 70% leased, and the banks took us out, and everyone has lived happily ever after. The Roman Catholic Church abandoned the oldest Roman Catholic church in the diocese, St. Michael's, strategically, beautifully located on the hill above historic South Side. Byzantine rectory and a lovely building. And a fellow came along, Tom Tripoli. He said, I can save those buildings. I'll turn them into condominiums. It'll be difficult, but I'll do it. I need a little seed loan. We made the loan, and then we said, well, while you're doing it, let our educational classes come in and see what's going on. And we did that. Really got into recreation for a while. Here is the beautiful view, and I have to tell you, he's sold a number of units, and he has a few more of those for you who will want to stay in Pittsburgh at the end of the week. And then a few weeks ago, we made a loan to these 2 houses, which are on one property, a very important location in Shady Side in the old Millionaire area. Most of those mansions are gone. 2 partners bought it. And one said, let's tear it down and put in 20 or 30 new condominiums. And the other, Richard Pearson, said, let's save it and do a B&B. And it got a little chancy, and there was a deadline at which time the demolition partner could take it down. We made a loan to Richard Pearson, all done very friendly. The other developer is gone, and Richard is now getting ready to provide housing for those of you who will revisit us. Well, Where does that money come from? Just talking about this lending money. First of all, we have our loan fund that we established back in the 70s. It goes round and round. We are indebted to foundations, corporations, individuals for that. We also use, for the market rate loans, our investment funds because we treat them as an investment, not a subsidy. And we also own a for-profit development company which provides contract services, real estate development, did Station Square, and on a fair basis because it's for-profit, operating in the private sector, and it generates money that we can use in these programs. And there are the lenders. And the lenders, particularly because of the early work Stanley did with Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group, the banks in the neighborhoods coming together, the lenders are in so many deals around here that it's hard to recite them. And right now we are negotiating with 2-3 of these lenders about some low interest money that would come to us to use in Community Reinvestment Act areas, and we will then use it with the neighborhood CDCs. And a little prematurely, I am announcing tonight that we've signed a term sheet. We have not done the final papers. Anything can happen, but we think only a good thing is going to happen. Howard Slaughter is really responsible, has worked endlessly for this. We are going to borrow at slightly reduced, below market rate, a very substantial amount of money from Fannie Mae. And we're going to take that money and use it to relend or co-develop, and the largest bulk of that money is going to the East Liberty neighborhood and to East Liberty Development, Inc., a very able CDC. And I have to quote all these people who are making these predictions for your return. The head of that CDC is Maylene Myers, and she said the next time you come, she'll be holding up 439 units of housing, totaling $87 million that she and her very able staff will leverage with the money we're borrowing from Fannie Mae. Grant making. Should say grant seeking. That's what we really like to do and need to do. But we make a few grants. We don't have a lot of money for grants yet, but we have some. And so we do some for facades. The little yellow brick building here became the little yellow brick building over there through a facade loan of ours. That's out in Homestead, a steel town. Here we have, back on Carson Street, Southside Local Development Corporation's very good lighting plan. We helped a little with that, and we're helping with some others. Here is the other building from the 18th century in Pittsburgh, out in Hazelwood, up over the Coke plant, which is still there. It had all kinds of appendages on it, and we made a grant to the Hazelwood Initiative and to the city, working with the City Redevelopment Authority and our Regional Industrial Development Corporation to get rid of that stuff, seal the building up, and now planning by Hazelwood Initiative and the city is going forward. We have a grant program for religious buildings, give a little bit of money every year, and give a learning session, a seminar, one day a year in some aspect of how to restore, maintain religious buildings. That led us into discussions with the Roman Catholic Diocese. Roman Catholic Dioceses and preservationists are not always together. They don't like it when we nominate their buildings, and we don't like it when they sell their buildings. And fortunately, we have Father Ron Lenguin at the diocese here, and we entered actually into a brief written agreement that is very positive and says, we'll nominate your buildings, but we'll tell you first, and we'd like your permission, and you will tell us when you're going to declare any building owned by the diocese surplus, church, nunnery, monastery, rectory, whatever. And I have on my desk, we signed this a few months ago, I have on my desk since last week a list of surplus buildings that the diocese has in hand, and our construction and architectural people are going out to see how they could be reused or marketed. Our grant program has a chance of growing, but we don't know yet. Casino gambling is coming to Pittsburgh. There are 3 applicants. One of the applicants will set up at Station Square. It was part of a deal we made in 1994. We felt Harrah's was the best deal for Pittsburgh. The best financed organization, fastest growing, $40 million member loyalty program. If that comes to Station Square, there will be significant more money that will come through us out into the community in the form of grants and other help. Also, immediately, the people that bought Station Square and are helping sponsor this conference, Forest City Enterprises and Landmarks, will match dollars immediately upon receipt of a license, and $400,000 will be available the first year, all for grants for neighborhood CDCs in the city of Pittsburgh, and can be used for operations as well as restorations. Now, I said we like to get grants, we like to make grants. We are always fundraising, but often it isn't for us, it's for someone else. We sort of know the ropes sometimes. People come in who are novices, so we get involved. And I'll just give you a couple. Here is a small historical society. I don't know whether Marcella McGrogan is here. She has been around quite a long time, and she's head. And they bought this building, they put displays in it. The stream next door had a huge flood and went in on the first floor where the displays were, but they all rushed in during the night and moved them all to the second floor. We helped raise some money to restore that first floor. She called me up a few weeks ago and said, you know, I need a little something else, $90,000 to point the building and do some other work on the roof, and we're trying to help form some applications. I did an outline for her the other day of how to do a foundation application and so forth. Out in Homewood, a distressed neighborhood, to say the least, but a neighborhood with tremendous history, there is a woman working named Diane Swan, who's somewhere here tonight. And she called us, and we went out, and we said, well, we really can't help you. You're not restoring buildings. What Diane is doing is she sort of got mad at what was going on in the neighborhood, quit her very good job, went to work to clean up the neighborhood. And in doing so, she started a landscaping program. And then she started getting young people in the neighborhood trained in landscaping. And then she started contract services using the young people and bringing in money to sustain her organization. She told me a half hour ago that crime in her corner of Homewood is down 95%. Where are you, Diane? There. Now, why do we do that? It's not preservation. It's because we think if she's successful, those houses right behind her will be restored all by themselves because people want to go and live in Homewood. The Boy Scouts came in 3 weeks ago and said, you know, we own this old log house, sort of not been well treated. We'd like to get it restored. We'd like to use it. We don't know really how to do any of this. We provided construction services, architectural services to get a plan, to get numbers, and now we're telling them a little bit about how they can go out and raise money. And here is the city-county building where you're all going if I ever stop talking. 7:30 tonight, Jim Furlow will be there to greet you. But you see on the front of that building a lovely embellishment, a sculpture with the name of the building. And Jim noticed that it was deteriorating and they'd better keep it from falling on the sidewalk. He has raised the money to restore this. And he told me this a few weeks ago, and I said, gee, Jim, if you restore it, we ought to light it. We have a lighting program here that we're trying. And I said, I'm going to call our friends at Duquesne Light and see if we could get them interested. And I did, and Morgan O'Brien, the president, sent word back that not only would they like to light it, they'd like to look at lighting the entire facade. So that'll be here next time you come. And Duquesne light comes in real handy. We have 3,000 bridges. My board a few years ago said we want you to get them lighted before you retire, so I did one in 1986, the Smithfield Street Bridge, the oldest in Pittsburgh, leading to Station Square. We did one in 98. We're going to do one in 2007. I have eternal job security till we get the 3,000 done. This one is right outside this theater, the Roberto Clemente Bridge, leads over to the new ballpark, and we lighted that in 98, and Duquesne Light came in with an incredible grant to enable us to do it. Easements. The best way to really save a building is to own it. The second best way to save a building is to own the rights to its exterior and important interiors if appropriate. And a number of organizations have strong easements programs, Philadelphia, Chicago, for example. We had a minor one, and then we decided we couldn't buy all the buildings. We better start finding how we could do easements on a much bigger scale. We're at work. Here was a group of suddenly endangered buildings when the Heinz Company, right across the river from here, decided it didn't need to manufacture food in any of these buildings anymore. Beautiful site by the river, would have made a lovely high-rise or two, but John Furchell from Cleveland, who does a lot of old buildings, did the warehouse district in part in Cleveland, came in, bought the buildings, said, let there be loft housing. And he came over and we met. We did an easement on the exterior of the buildings. We did an easement on the land. We did an easement on the air rights. The value of that easement, which is counted as a philanthropic contribution, the lost value of the real estate by giving us the control of it, is counted as a philanthropic contribution. It was huge. It made the project work. Without it, there would be no 242 units out of 297 already leased today. And it looks good. It just looks so inviting. Right across the river from it was another old industrial building, the Armstrong Cork Building. Abandoned 35 or more years ago. Developer after developer came from all over the United States. We're going to turn this into loft house. It came from Canada. Each one paid more for the building from the last one. That's how they all made money. Nobody did it. A man who had a trucking business next door, Chuck Hamill, bought the building, bought the land around it that was needed for parking, got some help from a Chicago experienced developer, and he has that underway right now. We have a major easement on it, and he has just started his leasing in the last few weeks. And then 100 miles from here, but still western Pennsylvania, is the great old Bedford Springs Hotel, Greek Revival, and then a long series of Victorian buildings with wonderful porches top to bottom, all wood, all gingerbread, has sat vacant for almost 25 years. And a man who is currently the ambassador to Costa Rica and who lives in Texas got interested. He likes to do old hotels on a grand scale, and he got John Furchell, who did Heinz Hall, who did Heinz factories. Heinz is everywhere in this town, and you're all wearing Heinz pickle pins. And John is the developer for him, and we did an easement on the buildings, all these buildings, and the golf course, the historic golf course, and again, it made the numbers work. And it isn't always an easement deal, it can be a legal agreement. Here is the Oakmont Clubhouse, and we have had a legal agreement there for years. They won't do anything to their building unless we approve it. It's lovely, and last year we published a major book on the history of the club. And finally, on easements, there are farms. We got into this because we went to something like 2,240 meetings about stopping sprawl, and sprawl didn't stop. And we got the idea that maybe the way to stop it is to get control of the land. And we raised a little money. You can see what was happening to the land there. We raised a little money, and we did begin to save buildings and land. And we're still at it, but here's where we are today. We've raised $650,000. We've sort of matched that. If you just take the tax-assessed value, not the market value, it's worth almost $7 million, and we have 34 buildings saved. Chicken coops and spring houses and farmhouses and barns, all protected in perpetuity. Well, I said the best thing to do is not to have to do the work yourself. So there are times that if you don't come to us, we go to you. And we do provide a little seed money and seed technical assistance. I'll just give you a couple of examples. 3 blocks from here, there is this wonderful old building. It started out as a clubhouse in 1927. It was designed by the same folks that designed the Omni William Penn Hotel, a very good firm. And people had sort of messed it up at street level, as you can see. It was acquired by Point Park University, which is a really vigorous, growing university right in the heart of downtown. And so I presumed one day to go over and call on Catherine Henderson, the president, and her office looks down on this from across the street. And I said, Catherine, you've done such a beautiful job on this side of the street, and you have instant American College Gothic on your campus. It's across the street, and you own it. And would you let us pay for a little study to show what it would be like to restore what was there originally? Well, she said, I'll even put up a little of the money. So we did a 2/3, 1/3, and we gave her a plan, and then we helped her raise a lead grant, and then she went out and raised all the rest for her very good idea, which is, let's have a bookstore there. And it's open, it's functioning, and what a difference in the street. She's been succeeded now by Paul Hennigan, and we are talking with him about another 6 buildings that the college is acquiring or has acquired, all historic in this area. They are going to be the great preservation leader of that end of downtown. The Urban League, Esther Bush, I thought I saw her somewhere. There she is. She bought this disused synagogue out in East Liberty. She started a charter school in the educational wing, but the sanctuary sat there, is still sitting there. What to do with it? So we provided some seed money to try to at least see what was wrong, what would it take, how about ADA, how about lighting, heating, ventilating, air conditioning, and we have done that, and we're all talking about what comes next. And she said, well, while we're talking about what comes next, how about looking at a couple buildings downtown? And so we did that. She had an interest in these, maybe rental property, maybe they could use them, and we've helped with A&E, construction cost, and with actually doing economic pro formas on what they would look like to lease. And we're just waiting for you to acquire them and let us know you're on the way. Up on Grant Street is the architectural lion of Pittsburgh, the Allegheny County Courthouse, H.H. Richardson. First tour to be sold out of this conference was the Richardson tour. We've been there a long time. There's a beautiful courtyard in the middle. It was filled with politicians' cars. And so we came up with the idea of making a park. This is back 20 years. And we went to the county, and we went to our friend who's funded many things for us, Dick Scaife, the Sarah Scaife Foundation, and we said, let's do something other than a parking lot. We started, and the county put up all the labor. We put up design and money with Sarah Scaife's help. The county laborers started to dig, moved all the cars out. The cars all came back in. The judges were not happy. Happened 3 times, but in the end, it's there. We hope you'll go up and take a look at it today. And, you know, once you get in the door, never take your foot out. We then formed a committee on the courthouse to help get it restored slowly but surely out of regular budgets and some money we would take on raising. And then we thought that's so successful, we expanded that committee to review all county properties. And with Tom Donatelli and Sam Taylor, the county architect, we're doing very well. We've put up the signs so that the area is explained. Well, here's another really successful and bouncy one. This was the old Allegheny Post Office, 1897. It's over on North Side. We could all walk over there and should tomorrow when it's open. This was to be demolished, part of urban renewal, and as part of URA changing its mind, it changed its mind and it sold it to us way back in about 1971 or 2. We restored it, raised the money, restored it, moved into it. And then a group came into us one day and said, we need some advice. We want to start a children's museum. We want to raise a lot of money. We've got to get $10 million, and we need to, can you tell us how? And I said, yes, don't do that. This is a practical town. Start small. We'll give you, we called it euphemistically our lower gallery, the basement, and you start down there. It won't cost you anything. By the time we started Station Square, we realized we weren't museum people, and so we thought we'll move out to Station Square and we'll just give them the whole building, which we did. They made a great success of it, but about 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, they called, Jane Warner called and said, we're out of space and we want to build a new building next door to the left of the post office. And I said, no, across the street is the Buell Planetarium, which has been abandoned for almost 15 years. You've got to use it. Oh, she said, we looked at it, won't work. I said, would you let us look at it with you? Well, yes, if you pay for it, yes. When we were done, this little building, which only has 2 floors, has 11 different levels. It's a lovely ADA problem. When we were done, they agreed it would work, and they would take it on. But now, there's a street between the 2 buildings. What would they do? Well, that's easy. You close the street, and you put up a very modern building that is also attractive. They got Connick Eisenberg in, and they put up the new building, and every tiny square, you can hardly see them, on that building moves in the wind. And if you don't think kids love to look at that. And inside, in the old Great Hall of the Planetarium, they made a cafe and a great gathering place, and I say it's bouncy. And then you go through the new bridge across the street, and you end up in the wonderful 45-foot dome space of our old post office. And I've never gone in. I go in frequently, showing people what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's just teeming with life. Yep, let me go the other way here. All right, next topic. Serving as a project intermediary and a manager and a fiscal intermediary. We do that again to be helpful. People do not have the structure. We're lucky to have 20 staff members here and board members who pitch in, volunteers, and we try to give the kind of expertise and help that they need. So, a few examples. Here was a great stone house of 1821, the Burton Her House. It's a little bit out of town, about 20 miles up the river, up the Allegheny. And PennDOT decided that it would have a new interchange for its new highway that was then building, and the access road would run through the Burton Her House. And the people there didn't really like that idea. They liked access to the road, but not through that house. And they called us, and we went to work We redesigned that interchange, took it to PennDOT, they adopted it, the house was saved, and the citizens have voluntarily maintained this house open to the public all these years. And then Jim called me and said, they need a new electrical system. They don't know how to put in an electrical system. They don't manage money like that. Can you handle that? And we can't get the state money that I can get to them for some months. They need it now. So what we did was we loaned the money out of our preservation fund. We loaned them our construction manager. They got it all done. The state sent them the money. They repaid the loan. It's finished. And then Jim called and said, remember the ballpark in Oakland? And we all saved a wall. And the wall is deteriorating. We've got to do something. And I've raised some money. I love the way Jim raises money. He goes to the Department of Economic Development and says, you will send them a check. And so we worked with the city and replanted, repointed, re-landscaped, and about 8 weeks ago, we rededicated it. Here is a property owned by Allegheny County. It's in a county park. It's very historic. It's 18th century. And it has been run for the county by volunteers as long as I can remember. My whole life, these people have been running this property. But they're missing an ingredient. The barn was burned down long, long ago. And they wanted a new barn, and they wanted a conference facility in the barn. And Senator Tim Murphy rounded up $500,000 of state money, and he sent it to the county, which owns the property. The county said to us, you know how to build a mortise and tenon barn? We're not even allowed to use nails in this thing. In fact, could you design this barn? And we'll give you the $500,000, and you have the responsibility. And we found an Amish contractor in Ohio who could work under all conditions. And our construction manager oversaw it. And there's the conference facility down below, and the barn is up above. And we brought it in on time, and I believe it's $7.30 under budget. Working together, leveraging money, magnifying results, lots of ways to do it. One was with the Cultural Trust. Some years ago, we did a study of selected buildings all through the Cultural Trust area to see if they could be reused as loft, housing, and in some cases, offices or hotel. Now, one of them is the building we're in. The Byam Theater is a condoed piece of the Renaissance Hotel in which many of you are staying, a handsomely done hotel. We looked at this building, which was functioning sort of as an office building, not in very nice shape. We looked at it for hotel, we looked at it for office, we looked at it for loft housing, and then we brought Dana Crawford in from Denver to give us some advice on loft housing because she did lots of it. And she had been involved in the Oxford Hotel in Denver, and she went home and told her partners, and her partners came in, and you are in their restored hotel today. And I'll send that out to Denver. All through the Cultural District today, loft housing is underway. Developers, architects are working together, working with the Cultural Trust and with the city, because it takes all kinds of financing to make these work, but you're going to see them all through the Cultural District. These are about to be done. And the Trust now has gone on to a new plan. It just announced this plan recently of new buildings and old buildings to be combined into a brand new visionary area just 1 block over. Leveraging money, helping the economy, helping people. This is a Main Street program. I mentioned it on South Side. All of you know Main Street. We are managing a project in the town of Vandergrift designed by Olmsted. So we have lovely curving streets, tree-lined streets, parks in this beautiful town. There's nothing like it in Western Pennsylvania. Complex bit of financing, but wouldn't you know, Jim Furlow got money that would pay us to go up there and do that. And they have a marvelous committee together, and Mayor Purificato, who's helping to lead this, and we are now, this week, helping to design a fundraising proposal to get a revolving fund going for Vandergrift from Pittsburgh Foundations. And Main Street leads to Elm Street, and we think we're going to be able to announce that we will be involved with Town Center Associates in a Main Street program of about 8 or 9 Main Streets over in the adjoining county that should be signed and underway within the next couple of weeks. And then keep your eyes open, because that's why we don't have departments. We're always adjusting. We read that the Getty Foundation in Los Angeles was giving grants to colleges to do stewardship plans of their historic buildings. And we called up and we said, we'd like to do that. You give the money to us, we'll do the plan for 4 colleges, let's say, 4 or 5 colleges that are near one another, very historic, and that actually could be linked together by a highway, the old Perry Highway, Route 19, to Pittsburgh to Erie, West Virginia to Erie. And Getty said, oh no, we only give the grants to single colleges, but it sort of sounds interesting, come and see us. And we went out to see them, and we ended up with a lovely grant, $250,000, and we have 4 colleges, and we're just about finished with this. But the magnification of results is we've got these colleges thinking about their buildings, we're giving them stewardship plans, we are also showing them how their historic buildings and their historic landscapes could be useful in their image building to attract faculty and students. And we are trying now to link them to the main streets of the little communities they're in, and then link these main streets all the way up to Erie into one marketing program. Now, we have a lot to do yet, but we're on the way. And one more of these in leveraging the economy. If you are at you will be at the Omni William Penn Hotel, please ride the elevator to 17, go to the Urban Room. It is designed by Joseph Urban. 7 years ago, luckily, the hotel called and said, you know, we're going to improve the Urban Room. We're going to paint it. What color do you think we should use? I said, a washcloth and gentle water, and you will find it is all covered with murals. And it was washed. You can dimly see them here. And all of that was saved. Our architectural historian went to New York and went through some archives and even was able to get a rug designed to go in the room that Joseph Urban would have approved of. Got a call 2 weeks ago. It's time to clean it up again, and we're going to meet with the hotel when this conference is over. And one of the things that should certainly bring visitors to this town and help our economy is our steel heritage. Problem is, we took out a big eraser and erased almost all of it. But Augie Carlino and the Steel Heritage Corporation are saving the Cary furnaces. It has taken years of labor to extricate these from a developer who bought them, planned to demolish them. And Augie and the county will have these open for all of you on that next trip. You can also develop business, the historic business, by supporting all of these various houses, small buildings that are all over the place and that volunteers run. Here's the Neville House. We own it, but volunteers, the Neville House Associates runs it. 1787. This is outside the county. Rachel Carson was born here. Gertrude Stein said, I was firmly born in Allegheny City. That's right across the river. Mary Roberts Reinhardt, Willa Cather, on and on. These things are educational and economic resources. We do what everybody does in this work. We go out and advocate. We negotiate. You may remember Oscar Wilde's remark, arguments are always to be avoided. They are always vulgar and sometimes convincing. We, I'm afraid, engage at times in these vulgar, convincing arguments. We hope they're convincing. Just one yesterday, we all got together, green buildings and preservationists, and we are all going to be advocating green building standards for historic buildings that are being restored. That is a very important result already the first day from this conference. Here's one in the wind. This is the Nabisco plant. It's abandoned. RIDC owns it. A developer wants it. And we are all working together, Preservation Pittsburgh, YPA, ELDI, we, to try to figure out how to get the best plan out of their plan. Well, I'm not too much farther to go, but I want you to hear about our education. And that is carried out here by Louise Sturgis, who is tremendously creative and has been at it for a long time. So I'm going to invite Louise to come up for a couple of minutes and tell you about that.
Our goal in education is to change people's thinking and their attitudes about old buildings and old neighborhoods, so they recognize the economic and cultural value of them. We count on our architectural historians to give us the content, the good content that forms a solid base for our programs. They give us the words to describe a place in its full personality and character. The heart of our education program is to show teachers how they can connect classroom lessons to the built environment and to engage students in exploring their school, neighborhood, and city. For the most part, we're teaching people to really look at their buildings in their communities for the first time and to take pride in what they might not have been encouraged to take pride in and to take that message home to their families. We start with the present, with what we see today. We anchor the story of the place over time to the neighborhood landmarks that we can touch and explore. And I see Esther Bush here in the front row nodding her head saying, yes, sir, we do, because there she is clapping as we've unveiled a plaque for the school that the kids researched, did the homework, researched the significance of the school, convinced our trustees that it was worthy of a plaque, put on a whole presentation, and there they are unveiling the plaque with Phil Howell, Esther Bush, our trustees. We jump the age of a building or place to feel how long it has survived. One jump equals 10 years, so Pittsburgh is about 25 jumps old, just so you know. And even kids build up a sweat when they start jumping 25 times. In comparison, most of the students who tour with us are just 1 or 2 jumps old. We feel the forces of tension and compression, the forces that something built feels. We discuss what particular street and building names mean. We measure the width of streets and sidewalks, estimate building heights, and compare historic photos to what's here today so we can analyze change over time. We find matches to historic photographs and to photographic details. And we rub the words on gas or water meters or the patterns on brick or metal to collect visual evidence about our community. Students map their community by color-coding buildings worth saving, or in good condition or in need of repair, and vacant lots. They suggest new plans for the vacant lots, and architects give their ideas reality right before their eyes. If the student says they want to have a new candy shop on the corner in that vacant lot or a greenhouse, the architect draws their vision. Each year, about 150 students participate in an architectural design challenge and build models showing their solution to real-life urban design problems. Other students sketch building details, and they become the building because we require them to use personification in poetry, thus imagining that they are the building detail. And take time for a minute to read that poem. To begin with, most of the students have difficulty even imagining or writing creatively, but they succeed and they become published authors and artists. We compile each student's drawing and poem in a booklet and then give copies of the booklet to every student in the class. It's amazing to hear the pride in a student's voice when he stands up to read his poem to that class. By establishing such personal connections and experiences between students and historic places, students begin to care about a place because they know something about that place. In the process, they develop a sense of belonging and strengthen their academic skills, and they begin to think about places in 3 dimensions. By that, I mean that every place has a past, a present, and a future. That is, if students choose to protect the place when they are adults. Our programs serve K through 12 students of all abilities and continue on into college with scholarship and volunteer opportunities. To begin my remarks, I emphasize good content, and I'll end by stressing the need to rally a volunteer corps to help you reach thousands of people. Any docents in the audience here? Raise your hand, clap, okay? Thanks to our docents and freelance instructors and many architects who volunteer their services, together we involve about 12,000 people each year in a full range of education programs. Check out the website that we created with students from 4 schools as a result of a Save Our History grant from the History Channel, and you'll see how easily young people catch on to the value of historic preservation. You know an education program is working when the students start to inspire you. Listen to their words. Save this building because it's been here for more than 100 years. Don't waste the bricks. If you don't cherish it, it might be gone tomorrow and you can't get it back. I'm glad this building is being reused because it's a waste to destroy something that's been a place full of life. You can find facts about places on the internet or in books, but you will never find out about how much fun people had in those places unless you ask. Arthur?
We'll wind this up with a couple of things and release you. First, I just want to say that we feel education is very important, not only of all these youngsters, but of ourselves, our planning officials, our public officials, and we provide scholarships to send such people to conferences around the country and abroad. It is broadening to go abroad. And for the first time in the National Trust history, I think, we went to the Trust and said, you know, we ought to bring people from abroad here. And all these people have joined us and are here for this conference under scholarships given between the Trust and our organization. Finally, this will be my final topic. There are times that we actually go out and at least start to do it ourselves, and I'll just give you 2 examples. One is the once very solid and now very troubled borough of Wilkinsburg, just outside the city limits in Allegheny County. They went through a neighborhood transformation initiative. They went out and looked at all the buildings, they looked at all the problems, then the people all came up with what should we do? And one of the things they said we should do is landmarks ought to do something. And so in the last year and a half, Landmarks has begun to do things in Wilkinsburg. These are the ones we've done. Some are grants to churches, some are loans to other nonprofits, and a couple are actual direct acquisitions. Here is a loan to the Black Vietnam Veterans of America who bought this building and want to restore it. Here is one to the old hotel right in the center of the main street, and the main street is the Lincoln Highway, New York, across the country. A faith-based group has that loan. Out there, a young man named Leon Haynes took on an old school building in terrible shape, and he has restored that building. It's a community center, it's an educational center, and he has this army of young people that he's educating and that he's involving in programs. And we're about to look at some joint development with Leon. And the people said, buy some abandoned houses and restore them and sell them at affordable rates. Allegheny County is the lead participant in this. Dan Honorato, who is the county executive, and Dennis Stavin, who heads the county economic development department. I thought I saw Dennis. There's Dennis. Made funds that we can use for construction subsidy and for mortgage subsidy available. And that was $500,000. The Sarah Scaife Foundation did the same, and I want to come back to that. But the work is underway. Work has just begun. 4 houses in one area where we think we have a little chance of having a kind of oasis and a ripple-out effect. And they were pretty bad. But at the head of that street, you see the turreted building right down there. At the head of the street is this old car repair garage. We didn't think that was so hot. Turns out it's an old Packard dealer. Turns out the man was willing to sell it and his land right across the street for $175,000. Turned out we closed yesterday for $75,000. And it's ours. And then on the other side of the street is this huge, beautiful apartment complex, all abandoned. And the county has acquired it so that we can work together and ultimately transfer it to us to be restored as good housing in this oasis that we're after. And once again, I thought you might like to know, how is it financed? Allegheny County, $500,000. Sarah Scaife Foundation, $500,000. That will be turned into a revolving fund. We can reuse any residue we have after the discounted sale. Hillman Foundation gave us funds that we are using for the Packard dealer. A fellow in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, who heard our plan giving director talking to someone who was his friend, said, gee, that sounds like such a good program. I think I'll give you a check to take back to Pittsburgh, and we have one from Russ Coe. And then we're using our loan fund and our religious properties fund. We also just received funds, that slide went by too fast, from Dominion, which we can use purely in the Wilkinsburg program. We are just making that announcement tonight. And then final point. You all remember we had the big Fifth Forbes fight here. Mayor Tom Murphy and Deputy Mayor Tom Cox said, let's replay the 1950s, those urban renewal plans. Let's go downtown, tear down 64 historic buildings, 5.5 acres, and give a lot of money to a Chicago developer to come and do it all over. And the business people and the merchants and the building owners and the customers and the preservationists disagreed. And there were some heated moments. The National Trust came in. Dick Moe had a press conference right in that square, declaring it one of the 11 most endangered places in the country. At any rate, the mayor and the deputy mayor and the plan have gone away. And we are all working together. One of the things we said to Tom Murphy was, open this to the free market, let local developers in, let anyone in. It worked in Baltimore. We brought the Baltimore folks in and explained how it worked. We also never propose, we never oppose unless we propose, and we got Stan Exton in to do a plan. At any rate, long and short, today it's all local developers. PNC is putting up its new building across the street from these 3 buildings, and thanks to our new mayor and to the Urban Redevelopment Authority, Yaron Zober, Jerry DeTour, all the folks that work there, we are acquiring these 3 buildings on the corner on probably December 7th. We're already at work in them, and work they need. These murals have all been painted to enliven them briefly. You're looking at the backs of the buildings now. We offered money to the city to repair this building. It needed a little help. The roof was in the basement, and so were the 3 floors that it fell through. Across the street is PNC's new development. Some old buildings went down, but we all worked it out together. And what we're showing is old and new can regenerate a city very compatibly. And we're very happy to say that we're the first developer into Fifth Forbes actually doing some buildings. Well, my final point is longevity is a good thing. I don't just mean mine. Longevity does this. You find out whether all the testing that you've done with your organization's ideas work. And after 40 years, you get a pretty good view of it. This street leads to East Liberty, where the Fannie Mae money will be going. It runs from 2 blocks from here. It's one of the few long, straight streets in Pittsburgh, or almost straight. You're seeing a picture of it when the Urban Redevelopment Authority of the 60s had gotten hold of it. The buildings were going down, and they had the brilliant idea that we all opposed, that what East Liberty needed was to be walled off with an ungraceful piece of architecture. Well, what worked, what didn't, and what happens to preservationists? They end up rejoicing in demolition. And Maylene and her staff have put up the welcome sign. We made a loan a while ago, and they're filling in those empty blocks with the right kind of thing. And the street is open, and business is developing. There is not often that you find people organizing a parade for new construction. But over on the north side, Harriet Henson organized single female heads of household to restore their blocks, 2 blocks. And when they got it done, they had a great parade. So our message to you, since Peter said we're supposed to deliver something to the other groups around the nation, is this: be pioneering, be reliable, be flexible, be in touch, be there, in fact, be everywhere. And 103 birthdays on Halloween night to the day of this theater. We're glad you're here. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. You all turn around. You are to follow the black and gold balloons to the City County building. See you there.